No, it's one of those weird microphone or weird batteries that you have to get at a specific store, and it's like $3. Like one of the weird circle ones. Let me get this out of the way. All right, we're signed in. We got 3 more coming to join us soon. With God's help, they'll sign in when they get here, and we shall. Speak of the 3. Welcome. Even better. We have 3 more joining with God's help in a moment. But okay, we'll begin. Welcome, welcome. Now beginning my Israel class number 4 of 6. In the first 3 classes we spoke. Hello. Welcome. We're just beginning. In the first 3 classes we spoke, and this is going to be a much more interactive class. So, I keep saying that, but I'm going to continue to encourage you guys to interrupt with questions or whatever it might be. But the first 3 classes we spoke much about the religious aspect of the land of Israel and its history. And now we're going to speak a little more in this class about the secular understanding of the history of the land and discuss the idea of what it means to have a homeland. Interesting timing for this class. Welcome. All right, fine, we'll get super political because we're having a current world crisis, right? A Ukrainian war based on exactly this topic. What is a homeland? Is this the Ukrainian homeland? Is this really just a part of Russia? Joshua, welcome. Thank you for joining us. So the first 3 classes, we talked a lot about the religious aspect of the land of Israel, and now we're going to talk about the kind of secular Wikipedia-esque approach to what is this place called Israel, and gain that perspective into our conversation, and then discuss how that still relates to the Jewish historic understanding of the land and what it means to have a homeland, right? So who watched the Vladimir Putin interview?
I watched a little bit.
A little bit? So it's very interesting. But whatever, we don't need to get into his argument. I'm not here to defend one side of a war or another. But relative to our class we'll be studying here today, he claims to have historic claim to the land of Ukraine based on mostly rulership factors, right? This king or this leader was in charge in this time, and these were the territories. Also, he establishes based on the establishment of Ukraine and the religion and culture, whatever, but mostly based on who was in charge, who was in charge of the territory, and the language that the people spoke when they were there. So, relative to the Jewish people, we have a Palestinian neighbor at the moment who have many a claim, well, not really so much with a claim regarding the lands, but recently has become the number 1 modern day opponent of the Jewish people in the land. We're literally at war with them at the moment. But historically, let's look at who was in charge of this plot of land over the last few thousand years, okay? So we started in the first 3 classes. We were talking about the Jews entering the land. It was called Canaan at the time, yes. There were 7 nations. This is like Abrahamic times. So this is about 3,500 to 2,500 years ago, okay? It's a pretty long time ago. Before this, the land of Canaan, there's no, even if you look at the modern day, like secular perspective of world civilizations at the time, you had Mesopotamia, right? And meaning pre-Abrahamic times, Mesopotamia, and name a couple others. What are these other? What's the Atlantis, right? It's not, no one with Atlantis? You guys not conspiracy theories? Aristotle writes about a hidden city that existed before.
Yeah, I know what Atlantis.
So it's called it, right. So, but recently we found a place in the middle of Africa that is remarkably similar in many ways to what Aristotle describes could be the spots as Atlantis, and there's many weird a conspiracy alien theory regarding this possible place called Atlantis, but that's neither here nor there. But there's no historical claim by any means to the land of Israel pre-Abraham. And if you were to go on the Wikipedia, it would actually say Semitic peoples, okay? Farmers, sheep herders type people were roaming the land, and then these Canaanite nations came about, but they were like cities. It was like a city-state, right? You remember when you were a kid, you learned about city-states. What's a city-state? It was a form of organized government with the main form of government being a city, and then you would have little farms or whatever surrounding it, and it'd be like a mini country almost, but this was their form of a country because it was just one city. Okay, so this essentially was what Canaan was. It was many city-states, right? We've heard of Sodom, right? Sodom and Gomorrah, right? So these would have been two of the, welcome, join us fellas. These would have been two of the quote-unquote city-states at the time, okay? And then in the year, roughly a few hundred years before the J-Man, the Jewish kingdom arose. Okay, we had a Jewish kingdom there. So now we have our first ever historic, what is a kingdom? A king of a nation, right? The British, there's very few kingdoms left and monarchies, right? But the British people are still technically a monarchy, right? It's an interesting monarchy, but they have a monarchy. But you don't, in other words, like I can declare myself king over my own house. We're not going to call this a monarchy, right? So kingdom has significance even in regular historic terms, okay? So the first kingdom to ever rule in this land was the Jewish people, okay? Then we spoke about last class, the end of the Jewish kingdom and many of the troubles, etc. we spoke about with the Romans and the Greeks and the rebellions. But we left off with the Jews being kicked out of the land. And now the question is, okay, no one was here before. Well, it was like sheep herder type peoples. Then we had city-states. Then Abraham and his children conquered the land. And now there's an actual kingdom there called the Kingdom of Israel. Kingdom of Judea, right? There was really two kingdoms, but it was one kingdom split, but okay. First people to ever call themselves rulers of this land. And then we got kicked out. Now, we ended last class talking about the Roman Empire, the Greeks, so obviously a tumultuous relationship between the Jews, the Greeks, and the Romans. But at the time, the Jewish nation, although still, so to speak, exiled, not formally in our final exile, we were much stronger than what we would say today. We still had a pretty relative presence in the land of Israel, really up until the Roman Empire finally smashed. Again, we would still have a presence in the form of Jewish people living there, and through all of history, we're going to see that at any given time in Jewish history, you're going to see there are Jewish people living in the land of Israel at any time. So we never left. How many of you guys have been to Israel? Wow, amazing number. So we've all met Yemenite Jews, right? You guys ever there during Sukkot? So the Yemenites have an amazing custom. Again, we understand that in Judaism, we were all there at Mount Sinai, right? And then we're talking about now we got exiled from the land. So 2,000 years ago, okay, when we had our kingdom, we're talking right around the time of the J-Man, right? Yashka is what we say in Hebrew. It references the name that we don't give evil energy, so to speak, any additional, so we don't need to mention his name. But that this individual, so it was right around this time that the Jewish people would have been exiled from the land. And from that, I'm sure many of you have friends or family from maybe Spain, maybe Turkey, maybe for sure everyone has a Jewish friend from Morocco, right? For sure everyone has we have Jewish friends in England, which would have been much later on. We have Jewish, but again, every one of these countries I just mentioned, you could actually not only find the time in Jewish history, or in world history rather, where the Jewish people mass migrated into these nations, but you could find the edicts from the rulers that said, get rid of these Jews, we can't take it anymore. And then you could, if you wanted to really kind of look at it from this perspective, so you can look at the rise and fall of modern empires based on how well they treated the Jews. The Ottoman Empire is a wonderful example. When the Spanish Inquisition of the Jewish people happened, and the Spanish were like, done with these Jews, there was also, in most of these countries, it wasn't so clear-cut, dude. It wasn't one day we love the Jews, next day we hate them. It was one day we love the Jews, then we start to not be able to stand them, then we need them to be like us. We don't like that the Jews are like themselves. And then eventually when there are Jews who are commit firmly into, they're never changing, we're not going to become Moroccan, we're not going to become Spanish, we're Jewish. Then they say, all right, these Jews got to get out. So in Spain, when they did this, where did we go? It was the king of the Ottoman Empire at the time who said, the Spanish want to make it illegal to be a Jew. Okay, send me your doctors, send me your lawyers, I'll make a wonderful empire. And then the Ottoman Empire literally became the greatest empire in the world at the time. So, all these empires we mentioned had what you might call sovereignty. Not sovereignty. They had territorial control. They had, it would have been a territory of the land of Israel under different empires. Under the Roman Empire, under the Greek Empire, there were rebellions. Under the Roman Empire, there were rebellions, and then officially, they crushed the final rebellion until the Jewish people weren't capable of more rebellions at the time. The Roman Empire renamed the land of Israel. Anyone guess? Why? To mock the Jews, yes? Because the Jewish, first of all, if you read the Roman accounts of the Jewish revolt against Rome, so this was the only revolt against Rome besides the two famous slave revolts, but of the early revolts, this was the only revolt against Rome that they ever were afraid was actually going to succeed. That the Jewish people almost overthrew the Roman Empire, and it was terrifying from them, and they rewrote history afterwards to make it seem like the victory was much more clear-cut than it was, because at first they sent 8, I believe, Roman, I forgot what the military unit is officially called, but this would have been a unit of roughly 30,000. Legions? Thank you. 8 legions, roughly 25 to 30,000 infantrymen or people in general, I think 20,000 infantrymen, 5,000 on horses, whatever it is per. So they sent 8 of them in the first rebellion of Israel, and we destroyed them, which had never, eight legions of the Roman military could take on the biggest. I mean, when the revolts would happen in the north against the German colonies, maybe you send 1, maybe you send 2, maybe you send 4 if you need. 8 legions against the Jews, this was a big deal, and we crushed that. So they sent 40 the next time. In other words, they made it so that we would have no chance. And then I think we're talking about, imagine an army the size of the Jewish nation, women, children included, versus a bunch of rebels. There's literally only so much you can do, so to speak. And eventually, the Romans skidooed us out of the land as military power. Welcome. Military power. And they named the land Palestine to mock the Jews. Dang Romans. Funny enough, there's no more Romans anymore, right? So lots of Jews, Baruch Hashem. Who knows the the beautiful, wonderful Hasidic hats that many Jews wear, yes? That maybe seem a little silly sometimes, especially for an American, right on first view. There's nothing wrong with admitting that. I grew up not religious. I would see one of these hats. I thought it looked ridiculous. What's the story behind these hats? That there was a Russian czar who specifically took a hatred towards the Jewish community, one specific Jewish community, a Hasidic community. That was a beautiful Hasidic community and was not, at that time it was illegal to practice Judaism, and by this community that they had these beautiful hats they would wear, and the Tsar wanted to embarrass them, and so he made their hats illegal, he outlawed their hats, and he made that their hats are only allowed to be made from the cheapest material at the time. It was like 2 different of the animals, and whatever the hat was, normally it would look like a schmucky, not nice hat, but the Jew, like the Jews in these communities, they took the hat, they took it as a form of pride. They made a beautiful, beautiful hat. We call it today a shtreimel. And even, I think it was only a few months later, when it became dictated again by the Tsar, they were allowed to wear their old hats. They never went back. And they took it upon themselves, not as an insult, but as a form of pride. Now, we're not going to start calling Israel Palestine, but needless to say, their mockery doesn't land very well. There's no more Romans, although unfortunately there is Roman thought, and there are Palestinians who are subscribing to much of that Roman thought. So let's continue now, a little bit of the history past the Roman Empire. Okay. So we have the 7th century post-Roman and Byzantine Empire. We have Arab tribes that unite under a new religion called Islam. Under this new religion, the newly minted Muslims embark on a mass conquest of the entire Levant, labeling the conquered territory the Caliphate. The first seat of this new empire was in Syria and was then moved to Baghdad. This era includes more than one caliphate. Some of them are Rashidun, Umayyad, Abbasid. I'm not going to lie, I'm very ignorant on caliphates and on Muslim history in general. I know a little bit about early Muslim history, about Muhammad and the splitting of his next successors, as it might have been, or grand successors, that there was that split. Now we have Sunni and Shiite. And that the modern day Muslim world is split into Sunni and Shiite. And that they only seem to get along when the Jews are. It's amazing. It's like the enemy of the enemy is your friend. These are 2 groups that can't get along on nothing. And then there's a Jewish person involved in any way, shape, or form, and you can't even distinguish between them. ISIS and Iran are all of a sudden, is ISIS always backed by Iran? I get them confused. Al-Qaeda, ISIS, whatever. Suddenly they get along to attack the Jews, heaven forbid. You can see it actually. It's amazing unity happening in the Muslim world at the moment because of this war. So with God's help, we're going to turn that unity into a unity for true peace and recognition of a Jewish state, and enough of the craziness. But okay, so we had the Muslim empires, and then the Muslim Kurds, by Saladin, ruled from Egypt. This was in the year 979 to 1272. And then we had, in this same period, we also had the Crusades, famous Crusades, which many of us have seen the paintings, although again, not very well historically formed on the Crusades period. But again, the idea being that Israel, Canaan, whatever, Palestine, whatever you would call this territory at this time, was never, at any point in modern history, even now, 1,000 years after the Jewish people kicked out of the land, who's the king of the land called Israel? No one else called it Israel. No one else cared. No one else wanted this land so badly. Never been an issue. Jews still lived there the whole time. They just didn't have a kingdom anymore because the kingdom got crushed. But the historic land, as it were, was Jewish land. They called it Palestine to mock the Jews, but the Jews still lived there. They just didn't have a functioning kingdom, but we still governed ourselves. We still lived by Jewish law. We're still Jews living in the land. Okay? Then, all the way to the Ninth Crusade, then the Mongols, I didn't know this till I started reviewing for this class, that Mongols at one point ruled the land of Israel. I don't think a very long point. 200 years, it says, about 200 years. And the Mamluks, which is a group of Turkish slaves, I think, that revolted against. So a lot of this whole article, by the way, so we can confirm all this, is Wikipedia. So we're trying to take the perspective, so to speak, of the regular secular world and recognize that even within their perspective, nowhere in here does it say anything about any other people having any claim over this land, morally, via any rights, via any desire even. The Roman Empire didn't have a desire, they just wanted to crush the Jews. They didn't need that land, the ports or whatever it might have been. They had North Africa, what do they need this, whatever. It was never such an issue. Including up until the Ottoman Empire. Okay, now the Ottoman Empire was the final empire to have control over the land called Palestine. Through and up into, anyone know?
The British.
But when was this? When the Ottoman Empire collapsed?
After World War One. So
nailed it.
Was it 19?
So it's here 1914.
14.
But World War One. Okay, so World War One is like the war that ended any empire, right? The Ottoman Empire was the final empire in the world. Germany, the Third Reich, tried, but no more empires. Well, we have an American empire, but it depends how you look at it. But the word empire is definitely not used anymore after the Ottoman Empire, at least not as a word of pride, it would seem. Well, the British Empire, that's not true, I apologize. The British Empire. The British Empire, after the Ottoman Empire, had, but at that point, 1914, the British Empire was in massive decline, right? It was Winston Churchill was like the only, even as a youngster, he writes about how the British, like after World War I, the entire British people took on a mentality that they knew their empire was, and this was, so he says it, and it's very similar, interesting enough, to what's happening in America, that it was almost like, he felt like the British people felt like they deserved their empire should collapse, like the same like in other words, the pain from the slavery and the not so great choices, the anti-propaganda on their own people, and World War I, the trauma of such a war, so they allowed their own empire to fall, and Winston Churchill was the only one who was fighting to maintain the great British Empire. He would write about the British Empire like it was a wonderful thing as opposed to a terrible thing. So it's interesting to see our own country go through a similar political crisis at the moment, where half the country thinks the quote-unquote American empire is a good thing, and the other half think it's not such a good thing. But we have a British Empire, okay? Also, again, Palestine still being the name of this quote-unquote territory. If you look at the maps of the lands from the different empires over the years, so the territory is always going to be called Palestine in different words, so continuing the mockery of the Jews, who again still lived there at the time. And now we're going to take an exact quote from the Wikipedia to prove the point we just made. That the region has been controlled by numerous peoples, including ancient Egyptians, Canaanites, Israelites, and Judeans. So again, Israelites and Judeans, they're separating as though two different people, we understand. I mean, they were technically two different people, but we're the Jews, right? It was 12 tribes. We were arguing at the time. We'd still come together for Sukkot, hopefully, but not necessarily. But you get the idea. Okay. Judean and Israelites and Judeans, Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, ancient Greeks, Macedonians, the Jewish Hasmonean kingdom. So in the time of the Maccabees, the Hanukkah story, we did technically have a kingdom re-rise under the Kohanim, the priestly class. They reinstituted themselves as kings over the land because they won the war, and Chassidus explains this itself was a mistake, and then they got kicked out afterwards. But either way, we had another kingdom for a small period of time after the Hanukkah story. Then the Romans, the Byzantines, the Arabs, the Arab Rashidun, Umayyad, Abbasid, and Fatimid caliphates. Pretty cool names. Crusaders, Ayyubids, Mamluks, Mongols, Ottomans. Okay? And from the 20th century, Israelis, Jordanians, Egyptians, and now the first time we're going to see the word of Palestinians, a new native people to the land of Israel known as Palestinians that had never been mentioned at any point in anything else we've read from Wikipedia until right now, until the 20th century onward. So in the 20th century arises a new group of indigenous. So we'll say that 10 times fast. In the 20th century arises a new group of indigenous. Do I get to claim indigenousness to whatever? I mean, in other words, like whatever. I personally am not someone, as a quick side note, who's super big on the indigenous argument. Rashi gives us exactly what we need to tell non-Jewish people, and they tell us why we're so interested in the land of Israel. God gave it to us. Get your own land. I don't know what to tell you. Abraham took it. Like, there's no real argument. God gave it to us. You don't believe in God, that's no problem. And whatever, we can have that conversation as well. But if you believe in a God, and you believe there's one God, he gave us this land. Moses testifies to this. Everything about our religion testifies to this. If you're a Christian and you're a Muslim, so then you testify to the original Bible. This is our land. No questions asked. This is what God says. You're God too. So that's the answer we're supposed to give. But even still, we've never seen a Palestinian people even claim until now. Okay? So, now that's not to say for the record that there weren't, like in other words, these people who are now called Palestinians were not, so to speak, indigenous in certain, like their grandparents and great-grandparents and ancestors weren't necessarily some way, shape, or form living in this land, right? There were many peoples who lived in this land in different times. But the idea of an indigenous group, its own culture and its own society and its own kingdom and etc., for the land of Israel up till the 20th century, everyone agreed there was none. There was one. It's called the Jews. They're still knowing about it, but the Romans basically took care of them, and now they just live everywhere, and they annoy people. That was the kind of the consensus. And then in the 20th century, we'll say post-1945, but we'll say that people on the other side of the argument would say that's not a fair argument, and that they've always felt that the Palestinians are there, etc., etc. But really, we'll say, obviously, it's only once the Jewish people finally have a homeland, they're like, no, these Palestinians were here the whole time. No one was so interested in helping the Palestinian people, and let's be honest, unfortunately, even today, no one is interested in helping the Palestinian people. They're interested in giving the Jews a hard time. There are 2 million Palestinian people sitting in a town the size of, it's probably a little bigger than Tallahassee, if that. And they're surrounded by 2 Arab countries, literally right there. Like they could walk directly into 2 Arab countries that have gigantic walls, way bigger than the one Israel ever had on the Gaza border, that says nope. So no one's interested, unfortunately, in helping the Palestinian people. But it does appear that historically, and with terms of indigenousity, that's not a word, but we're going to say it is, that this is not a real claim that Palestinian people could even make pre-20th century. Okay? And the Jewish people make for 3,000 years to make this claim, and we maintained a presence in the land the entire time. Okay? Questions? Comments?
Wait, why is Palestine mocking the Jews?
So it's a play on words, like Philistines was the ancient Hebrew word for our ancient enemy. The Philistine people who lived in, actually, interesting enough, Gaza. They in the 7 Canaanite nations, so one of them was the Philistines. And they were the ones who would never give the Jews a break, historically. So to mock the Jewish people, the Romans named the entire land the name of Palestine, as though the Philistines had defeated us. But Philistine also in modern terms is it's a play on words for like a savage person. A Philistine is known for, not a savage person. A Philistine is a person with a purely, I would say, a taivadika person. A person who's purely into themselves and what feels good. An American, maybe. No, a Philistine. Fine, an American from Los Angeles, maybe. Right? A Philistine. A person who's just, it's all about, I feel good and I'm an influencer and I eat and here's what I eat and here's what I do and I'm on the beach and me. This is a Philistine. The opposite of a Philistine would be a person like a person with immense self-control, self-discipline, right? Jordan Peterson's the opposite of a Philistine, hopefully. Right? This is a sophisticated individual. Michael Knowles. Well, Michael Knowles, shout out for any Michael Knowles fans in the crowd. Probably not. Okay. So now, section 2. I promised to be a short class, and I already bungled it, so we're going to make it short. I'm going to give the quick little main sections of this section. I'm going to tell the story I want to tell you guys, and then I'm going to beg you all please to ask me any questions, because I can see that I've already put half of you to sleep. All right. I'm trying to make this as, all right. You know what? I'm going to ask you guys questions. I'm going to ask you a question. When you're on campus, what's like the number one Palestinian argument being screamed in your face? What's the number one thing you're like, oh, I know that's wrong, but I don't really have an answer for you? The Jews, they're really the new Hitler, heaven forbid. Like, all right, you're crazy. We have an answer for it, right? But what, anything?
Genocide.
Okay, genocide. Good one. So the genocide one's, interestingly enough, kind of falling apart quick. That one's it's an easier one to tackle. So genocide, by definition, is specifically against a group of ethnic people, right? So the only validity to the claim of genocide is the fact that our war is against one group of ethnic people. So that's a lie. We're also fighting Hezbollah 5 seconds to the north, which by their own definition is apparently a different group. These are not Palestinians, they're Lebanese. So we're fighting 2 ethnic groups at the same time, while trying to fight off 7 others. Like, in other words, in conversation, there are 7 others about to attack us as well, different ethnic, heaven forbid, that we're just trying to convince to not join the war. So the idea that the war itself is a genocide is a little absurd, and the fact we're not fighting just one cultural group. Secondly, it's a pathetic genocide. There's 2 million people in a city the size of Tallahassee. I mean, you could, heaven forbid, the worst army in the world could just start chucking grenades, and you're going to start taking down numbers. Heaven forbid, these are 15-story, 10-story buildings in Gaza made out of. You take out the bottom, the whole thing collapses. The next 3 buildings around, everyone's dead. If we wanted civilian casualties, this is not a difficult place to do it. Have you seen the pictures of Gaza? Have you seen Khan Yunis? This is a joke. I mean, it's a city of rubble, and it's meaning they got everyone out before they did that. You understand? It did not even. It looked half that bad. But if they wanted civilian casualties, it's not even. It's horrible. It's like they're right. It is a very densely populated area, and the fact that only over 200 Jewish people, Jewish men and women and fighters, heroes, have passed away, Zichron Livracha, that their memory should be a blessing, because of the Jewish people's refusal to just have thousands upon thousands of civilian casualties. And the God's honest truth is, if you take any of the numbers that are being given as even Hamas's own numbers of 10,000 militants that have been at the very least taken out of the battlefield, out of 30,000, let alone killed probably, with maybe 5,000 still alive, and at least half of Hamas taken out, the number they're giving of the amount of deaths is what? It's under 40,000. And meaning it's all horrible, but so 1 to 4, that's the most incredible number in war history. What do you think the Americans did in Afghanistan? What do you think we did anywhere? Are you kidding? First of all, you want to talk about war, and I don't want to talk about war crimes, talk about war crimes. You want to talk about war crimes? We're standing in the United States of America. Go to Iraq. What do you have your mind? Go to Japan. We're not talking about war crimes. We're talking about genocide. We killed 3 million people in 2 days. Well, I didn't do it. I didn't drop no bombs. I wouldn't have approved, for the record. But genocide, please. These people have mental health disorders. They're not sane. They're not reason. There's a genocide happening on the Russian border, not even with Ukraine, with Serbia. You people don't know. Go to war then. Pick up a gun. Go fight for Hamas. They'll kill you the second you show up there, you loser, and take whatever $7 you have in your pocket. These are savage people. When the civilians followed the truck with a Jewish woman who had been, I'm not even going to say what happened to this poor woman who's dead, and they're cheering for Hamas. For the record, 30 days later, bombs are flying and 5,000 Hamas militants are dead within the first 30 days of the war. These people are still cheering when rockets are going off. Okay, 80% of the civilian population of Gaza, 30 days after the war, approves of Hamas. These are innocent civilians who approve of the rape of actual innocent Israeli civilians, who are approving of an active, like a war. Again, 2 million people who were allocated to 3 major cities, now allocated to 1. All of it, you watch them walk in the street, no belongings, no nothing. All their homes, their lives, quote unquote, destroyed. Government will give them whatever it is. Allah Akbar, shoot the rockets. This is the same, this is a manipulated, this is a psychopathic population. It's not a normal population. So genocide, we could talk genocide. Plenty of genocides. Historically, we talk genocide. So go on Wikipedia, we go with genocides. Gaza's not showing up as one of them. Okay. But let me tell you what I really think, though. All right, so now real quick psukim, quick few verses of just the historical idea that, again, the Jewish people were not only there the whole time, but that it's a fundamental aspect of our religion, that we're going back, and that it's going to be rebuilt in a bigger and better way. Then I'm going to tell one quick story with God's help, and then we will end the class. So every day in the Siddur, we pray to God 3 times a day, yes, and we say the Amidah. Amidah means to stand, the standing prayer. We stand before God, and we say 18, really 19 blessings, and one of them, V'lu Yerushalayim Erecha Barachim Taishu V'sishkan B'seicha Karsher Dibarta V'chisa David Decha Meher B'seicha Sachin V'nei Oysa B'kar Mem V'nei Olam Baruch Hashem B'nei Yerushalayim. That we thank God, return in your mercy to Jerusalem, your city, and dwell therein as you have promised. Speedily establish therein the throne of David your servant. This is referencing Mashiach, the Messiah, who will be coming from the line of David. So we understand David is also a person, but spiritually he represents the heart of the Jewish people. He represents the heart of every single Jewish person, the potential we all have to really love God. That's why we all read Tehillim. It's not just King David wrote the book on all of our behalf, so to speak. Kind of like Moses prays to God on all of our behalf. That's tzaddikim, the righteous people, they represent all of us before God. So David, your servant, and rebuild it soon in our days as an everlasting edifice. Blessed are you, Lord, who rebuilds Jerusalem. So the Chachamim, the sages, when they implemented a prayer service for the Jews 3 times a day, and they picked very specific words and 18 blessings, one of the 19 blessings of the standing prayer is the rebuilding of Jerusalem. So Jerusalem of Zion, all of Israel. Okay, but Jerusalem is its capital, obviously. Then, so this is very cool. That there's a story of Napoleon Bonaparte, that he was once traveling through a small Jewish town in Europe, and he entered a synagogue. And he saw people weeping, and he was flabbergasted. And Napoleon Bonaparte, he's conquering Europe, he sees Jewish people crying. Okay, what tragedy befell these people? And they tell Napoleon, the gabbai, the head of the shul, so it's Tisha B'Av. It's a holiday, 2,000 years. We had a temple, got destroyed. We cry, we want our temple back. We want a new temple. And needless to say, Napoleon was very impressed. So he says, in other words, so I'll give you his exact line. A nation that cries and fasts for over 2,000 years for their land and temple will surely be rewarded with their temple. That was Napoleon's line. But again, the idea of, it's a very powerful thing. Imagine you're I don't want to say psychotic. You will say psychotic, where you're a world, you're the Alexander the Great of the modern world. You're conquering the world like no one ever has before. You're the most powerful man alive. And you're probably not impressed by very much. And you're also not a very good, how much horror and chaos this person causes. I mean, people he killed, he cares about someone crying. What does he care? So this impacted him, apparently. Seeing the people crying over the temple destroyed 2,000 years earlier. So that's our holiday Tisha B'Av. Okay? And now we're going to tell the very, very famous story in the Gemara about the destruction of the second temple, so that we should all be a little inspired to know that with God's help we will have a third temple. It's coming immediately. And this is we learn in Chassidus and Chassidic thought that this story is not just a very nice story the Gemara tells us to reinforce and make us feel better, that this is a deep mystical story of the significance and of deep, deep wisdom. So we'll tell the basic story now, then I'm going to tell the story I want to tell, and then with God's help we're done. Okay. It says in the Gemara tractate Makos, that there was another time. Rabbi Akiva and his friends, Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and Rabbi Yoshua were ascending to Jerusalem. When they came to Mount Scopus, they tore their clothes. When they reached the Temple Mount, they saw a fox emerging from the place of the Holy of Holies. They started to cry, but Rabbi Akiva was laughing. So why are they crying? So the story is the sages are a temple, or rather the Romans are destroying the temple, and the sages can't believe their very eyes. They're ascending the Temple Mount to go see for their own eyes the temple destroyed. And when they get there, they see a fox, so a random animal, running out of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies. This is the place where the 10 Commandments, the first tablets that were broken, they sat in the Ark of the Covenant. It was all in the Holy of Holies. And there's now an animal just running out of there. It's like, it's not even, what happened to our holy place? So they're all crying. And Rabbi Akiva, big Rabbi, so Rabbi Akiva was born not religious. He lived his first half of his life not religious. He became religious at the age of 40 and became the greatest sage amongst the Jewish people at the time. And so everyone else is crying, Rabbi Akiva is laughing. They're looking at Rabbi Akiva, like they're depressed, they're crying. What are you laughing? So they say to Rabbi Akiva, why are you laughing? And he says to them, why do you weep? They replied, the place about which it was written, and the non-Kohen that draws near shall die, is now a haunt of foxes, and we should not weep? He replied, that is why I laugh. So they quoted a pasuk of the prophecy that their temple would be destroyed and that a fox would be in the place of the Holy of Holies. And now they're seeing the fox run out. They're seeing the prophecy. They're crying like, oh my God. Rabbi Akiva was laughing. He says, is it not also written, and I will take unto me faithful witnesses to record Uriah the priest and Zechariah the son of Yahu. Now, what was the connection between Uriah and Zechariah? Uriah lived during the period of the first temple, and Zechariah lived during the period of the second temple. Rather, the verse was making the prophecy of Zechariah dependent on the prophecy of Uriah. Regarding Uriah, it was written, therefore shall Zion for your sake be plowed, etc. Regarding Zechariah, it is written, there shall yet old men and old women sit in the broad places of Jerusalem. Until the prophecy of Uriah was fulfilled, okay, so that says, Rabbi Akiva, until the prophecy of Uriah was fulfilled, I was afraid that the prophecy of Zechariah would likewise be unfulfilled. Now the prophecy of Uriah was fulfilled. I know that the prophecy of Zechariah will be fulfilled. And the sages responded, Akiva, you consoled us, you consoled us. So in other words, in short, if the first prophecy came to light that our temple was going to be destroyed, so then the promise God makes that it's going to be rebuilt is also going to come true. And that's why Rabbi Akiva was laughing. He was able to see the positive. Okay? And now we're going to finish quick Chabad story. Okay? The Hasidic movement was started by a man who, again, we end with his little... I try to do a little teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. I try to do a teaching of the Baal Shem Tov at the end of each class. We'll do another short one today. The founder of the Hasidic movement. But needless to say, the Hasidic teachings wouldn't have continued to spread like they had without immense leadership after. So the Maggid of Mezrich, the preacher of the town of Mezrich as he was known, was the leader of the Hasidim, the overall Hasidic world, after the Baal Shem Tov passed. And he had, I believe, 60 primary disciples. And much like an incredible table of elders, so they would meet, the Maggid himself, when he would from Frankfurt, he would teach, he would give I don't want to say a shiur, not a class, but he would give Chassidus. He would teach the holy words of the Baal Shem Tov. And these students, all of them, again, the Maggid had thousands, millions of followers, but these were his primary disciples, and they all became big rabbis of big communities, big rebbeim in their own. One of them, the youngest one, the founder of the Chabad Lubavitch movement. And one day this group had a problem. There was a Jew living in town, or rather the town next door, and these Hasidim would oftentimes, in an attempt to save the souls of other Jewish people, they would, much like we do modern day in Chabad, try to put tefillin on people. What did they do back then? They tried to get people to give charity. If they get someone to give charity, so they do a mitzvah that infinitely binds them with God, and they would be closer to securing a world to come, a place in the world to come. And there was a miser, a very cheap Jew in the town next door. Right, surprise, who didn't want to give. He didn't want to give. For years they're trying with this guy and they can't get him to give. And they don't know what to do. Very, very wealthy Jew. And they tried everything, and finally they came to the Maggid, they came to the master, and they asked him, Holy Master, we tried everything, we don't know what to do. Tell us. He said, for this one, so you need Shnori, as he called him. The Alter Rebbe was Rabbi Shneur Zalman Meliadi. Liadi was the town, but Shneur Zalman would be his name. So Shnori is like my Shneur, in other words. He said, for this, you have to ask my Shneur. Rabbi Shneur Zalman, the Alter Rebbe, was a very unique soul. He was also not born in the Hasidic world, and he came to the Hasidic world, and he had a very unique perspective. And even though he was the youngest Hasid, the Rebbe knew, meaning the Maggid knew that the Alter Rebbe had a special way of going about it, that he maybe is going to be the one to get this guy to give tzedakah. So accompanies the Alter Rebbe on this mission, after the Alter Rebbe agrees to go, is Reb Zusha Anipoli, who is known to be very, very famous chassid, an incredible, high soul, and Reb Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, who again, a big Rebbe, he became a big Rebbe of the community of Berditchev, and he's known as the defender of the Jewish people. That this was a soul who he couldn't see a Jewish person in a negative light. He only saw the best in people. And so it was these three people who were sent on this mission. And they get to the guy's mansion, and there's 3 gates. There's a big gate at the outside. They get to the gate. The security comes. He goes, what are you here for? Oh, we're rabbis of the community next door. We're raising money for a family that's in prison. We want to get this family out of prison. We're raising money for them. So, okay, no problem. Paupers in the back. And Reb Zusha and Reb Levi Yitzchak were made the promise by the Alter Rebbe that they wouldn't ask any questions, and if they're going to come along, even though the youngest chassid's the one going to be in charge, they're not allowed to question him and they're not allowed to ask any questions. And they agreed. And so the Alter Rebbe says to the security guard, he says, absolutely not, we're not going to the back. We're not schlups, we are rabbis, we are here for raising money, but we're here for a good reason, whatever, we're not going to the back. We'll come through the front door. The security guard's like, that's nice, but what am I supposed to do? All right, I'll call the guy. I'll see. I've never gotten this request before. So they call, and the owner is, what are you, crazy? Get out. Tell them to then get out. Go to the back or get out. Security guard comes back. The Rebbe says, no, I'm not leaving. Call him again. I'm not leaving this place. We'll stay here for years. I don't care. I'm going through the front door. I'm talking to this man. Okay, security guard calls him back. All right, okay. Security says you can go in. Goes to the 3rd gate. They get to the 2nd gate. Tells security, Okay, badge, ID, whatever, etc. What are you here for? Oh, we're here to collect money. Right? Oh, all right. Well, Pauper's in the back. I don't know how you got in, but no, we're going in the front. They do the whole spiel again, the phone calls, whatever. All right, go through the second gate. Get to the third gate. Same thing, badge, ID. Badge ID. We're talking 300 years ago. There's no ID. I'm just speaking in. Well, there could have been ID actually. Just not. I'm thinking electronic one. Okay. Badge, ID, electronic. Get in, and whole argument again. Finally, they let them through, and they get to the front door. And by the time they get to the front door, the owner of the house, big mansion, is waiting there. These rabbis, who do these people think they are? Too good to come in to take my money? Too good to go to the back like everyone else? Okay, I want to meet these people. So the rabbis come up. And he gives them a hard time. He invites them in the house. And he says, my money is what you came here for, huh? It's my money you need? Well, let me show you some of my money. He starts taking them down the main hallway. Shows them the beautiful paintings and the Picasso and this millions of dollars, millions of rubles worth of stuff. And Reb Levi Yitzchak and Reb Zusha are frustrated. This miser, this Jew, they try everything. They're trying to save this guy's soul. And he's such a jerk. And he's treating us like this. And we're just, in other words, the Rebbe was the one who insisted we came to the front door. That's not even their thing. But still, that he's treating them so terribly. They can't, they're so done with this Jew. They're ready to leave. But the Rebbe's smiling. Oh, very nice painting, yes. Oh, yeah, it's a very nice fork. Yeah, it's very nice. Oh, it's a very nice pool table. Very cool. All right, yeah, I get it. Finally, they get to the end of the hall. And there's a little rusty coin sitting on a nice stand. The man grabs the coin, Jewish man, and he throws it at the altar Rebbe. Hits him in the chest, hits the floor. And he says, this is what I have for you. This is what you get. Everything I have here, this is what you get. And now Reb Levi Yitzchak, Reb Zusha, they're over it. They're about to run out of the house. Done with this Jew. Excommunication, heaven forbid, we can't take this anymore. And the altar Rebbe picks up the coin. He goes to the Jewish man. He says, thank you, my holy brother. You have no idea how much we need this money. There's a Jewish family just in the town next door. We need 600 rubles to get them out, or the Poritz is going to kill them, and they owe money for this. When it's such a crazy situation, anything we can get helps. Thank you so much, you holy, holy man. We love you so much. Thank you. You're the best. He took the coin, says, we'll be on our way. And the rich guy is a little confused. Whatever, we're sugar crazy Jews. Just get out of my house. Walks him to the front door. Walk to the Reb Zusha and Reb Levi Yitzchak are not happy. They're looking at the Rebbe like, how could you possibly treat this guy with any respect after this whole whatever? But then we're not allowed to ask any questions. And walk out the first gate, and they get to the second gate, and they get to the third security gate, and the security guard comes out and says, stop right there. No. You got to go back. Let's go back. He says, he wants to talk to you. You got to go back. He told me to send you back. So okay. So they go back. That's the second gate, the first gate, and they get to the front door. And the rich man is standing there waiting for them again, and he says, I don't think you saw well enough how much money I really have. Come back inside. I'm going to take you down a different hallway. And he takes him down a different hall, and he shows him this painting and this thing, and he really shows him amazing stuff, big diamonds and whatever. And they get to the end of the hall, and at the end of the hall, there's a little sack of coins. And he grabs the coins, and he takes out a single ruble, and he hands it to the altar Rebbe this time. He says, you said you need 600 rubles for the family? I'll give you 1 ruble. You have 1 of my rubles. But the rest of this stuff around, that's my stuff. Now get out of my house. Can't take it. Get out. Thank you so much, my holy brother. You have no idea. 600 rubles is a lot of money, and now we're 1 ruble closer. You're such a holy Jew. You have no idea what a mitzvah this is. And he goes on, and the Rebbe says, thank you. And he takes the money. God bless you. Hashem should bless you. And they leave. And they walk past the first gate. And they walk past the second gate. And Reb Zusha and Reb Levi Yitzchak are still confused. And they're like, whatever, let's just go home. And they get to the third gate. The security guard comes back and says, I don't know what you guys are doing, but go back. He sent you, he needs you to go back. So go back, really? No, he wants you back. And they go back, and they get back to the house. He says, you guys really aren't getting it. You don't get how much money I have. And he brings the rabbis in, he takes them down a different hall. He says, okay, etc. By the end of the hall, he says, 600 rubles you need it? Here's 100 rubles. Like, get out of my house. Get out. I can't stand you people. Get out. And they're leaving. And now Reb Zusha and Reb Levi Yitzchak are so confused. Like, I don't know what is wrong with this guy. He hates us. He likes us. He's giving us money. I don't know. And they leave. And they go through the first gate and the second gate and the third gate. They get to the third gate. And again, security says, I'm sick of you people. He called me again. Go back. Go back. I don't know why you keep leaving. Go back to the house. And they get back to the house, and he says, you rabbis really just don't get it. And he brings them back in, and he takes them through a different hole. He takes them to the end, and he gives them the full 500 rubles. And he says, get that family out. Take my money. Get out of here. I can't stand you rabbis. Get out. Get out of here. Get out, you people. And finally they leave. And they go to the first, second, third gate, and finally they leave, and they go back to the Maggid. And they're walking, and they're going back to the Maggid on their journey. And now Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Zusha are so confused. They are so out of it. They're just, what is happening? What just happened? We got all the money, and he still doesn't, just the whole thing very confusing. And finally, they get back to the Maggid, and they get to the big table, and the Maggid's at the front, and the Alter Rebbe has a chance to explain himself. And the Rebbe says like this. He says that the Rebbe experienced davening ruach, a kodesh, it's called, the spirit of holiness came upon him, and the Rebbe saw that this very wealthy man actually lived his entire life, up until a few years ago, as actually a complete pauper, a very, very, very poor man. And when this man was in his mid-20s, he realized to himself he had been so poor his entire life that he had never had the opportunity to give tzedakah before. He was a Jewish person, he never gave charity before, because he never had charity to give. And as he realized that, it was heartbreaking. It felt terrible. When he had a rusty coin, a coin that he tried to spend on something and it wouldn't even take it, he says, maybe someone else will have better. I'll find someone with less fortune than me. I'll give them this coin, and I'll have given the mitzvah. I'll do the mitzvah of giving charity. So he found a homeless man who was even more not as good off as him, and he goes and he gives him the coin. He wishes him a bracha, right? Genuinely, he wants to help the guy. And the homeless guy takes the coin and he throws it at him. How dare you? What's this coin gonna get me? I have children and a sick wife and a this and that. How dare you? Get out of here! Leave me alone. And the poor man was heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken. First time in his life he ever tries to do a nice thing for another Jew. Okay, so it's not wealthy, it's not a ton of money. All right, so it's not going to get you that far. At least he tried. So he picks up the rusty coin, he puts it in his pocket, he makes a promise to himself. So if I ever become a wealthy Jew, I'm never giving $1, I'm not giving a ruble to anyone who doesn't accept my rusty coin. So the Rebbe said that once he accepted the rusty coin, what happened? When the Rebbe thanked him, why did the Rebbe thank him so immensely? The Rebbe said, because every Jewish person obviously wants to give tzedakah. Tzedakah comes from the word tzedek, righteousness. So the idea of tzedakah is not so much giving charity, it's that there's a piece of the world that's broken, to paraphrase the Lubavitcher Rebbe, there's a piece of the world that's broken so that we ourselves can be the one to fix it. So we make it right, we make it correct. It's called tzedek, righteousness, tzedakah. And that when he had given tzedakah the first time and experienced the gratitude that for the first time in his life he felt what it was like to do a mitzvah, and that they literally could not leave his property before this man had such a desire to do another mitzvah. He had to give more charity. So the first time it was just a rusty ruble, but the second time it was a full ruble. And then he felt the gratitude, etc., and he felt so good. By the time we got to the third gate again, he had to call us back, and he had to give us the full 100 rubles. And then by the time he saw, I was so emotionally overwhelmed getting this family out and 100 rubles, etc., that by the time he left the third time, he had to give us the full amount of money. That a Jewish person cannot help themselves but do a mitzvah once they get a little taste of doing that mitzvah. So l'chaim, that's how we're going to, minus one sheet of paper, that's how we're going to end the class today. We'll read together this quickly, but then we'll be done, and obviously I'm happy and insist on taking any questions if you guys have, but I know it's Thursday night and life's about to pop off in Tallahassee, so if you guys have plans, thank you so much. That was the required time for the class, and you're all free to go. But quickly, I will just read for us. Okay. One of the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movements. When someone issues a verdict on another, he is actually pronouncing his own verdict. For example, if one asserts that because of a certain misdeed another committed, he is deserving of such and such punishment, he is actually issuing that verdict on himself. And conversely, if one says that because of a good deed or word that another has done, he is deserving that God should help him in the areas where he is needing, that blessing too is fulfilled on himself. In other words, it says that when a Jewish person passes, so their soul is given an experience of their entire life story, but from the experience of an objective observer, not knowing that that's their story. and that we become the judges of our own story, actually, and that we watch our lives. This guy looks like a loser. Oh, what a schmo. And the way we judge based on their own criticisms, the way we developed ourselves, the way we judge our own lives is the punishment, so to speak, that we're judging ourselves, not even realizing it. So judge others positively. And know that this is actually the way we look at ourselves, because all Jewish people are really a part of one klal, of one general soul. We're all expressions of one another, so to speak. Love your fellow Jew as yourself. Try to judge your fellow Jew favorably. And with God's help, we'll make the world a kinder, more loving, and generous place. Okay? Good? L'chaim. No claps, thank you. Any questions? No, none necessary if you guys are ready to skadoodle. Thank you so much for joining. And with God's help, we'll see you next week. Birthday for Brangen. Rabbi Moshe's birthday for Brangen, if you guys want, next Tuesday night at the Chabad house here. We'll have a little l'chaim, we'll get some snacks, we'll have a little bissel for Brangen. Okay?
All right.
Sound good?
Happy birthday.
We'll wait till Tuesday. It's for Hasidim. It's a tradition on your birthday to have a farbrengen and give l'chaim and give blessings to people. So with God's help, next Tuesday night, I'll put an announcement in the group. All right, thank you guys so much.